Welcome to What About PS, a Poland Syndrome podcast, where we talk about all things Poland Syndrome. The episodes that you can look forward to in this podcast speak about the male and female experience, motherhood and breastfeeding, general day-to-day living, health and fitness, and also including hand and chest affected people who have Poland Syndrome. If you have Poland Syndrome, or if you know of someone who has Poland Syndrome, then be sure to have a look out and listen to our latest episodes. Welcome, guys, to the latest Poland Syndrome podcast. We are a podcast that talks mainly about Poland Syndrome, what it is, how people can reach out for help, and also creating a community where people with Poland Syndrome can come and share their stories and meet other people that are like them. So this is just the introduction to the series that we have coming up. And I am Giselle Barbosa. Should probably introduce myself first. I am a member of the community. I have Poland Syndrome. I'm also an entrepreneur and a professional athlete. And so this is something that is very close to my heart. And I'm also a podcast host. And so I'm really excited to get to chat to people and hear more of their stories as well. And today with me, I have Sam Fillingham, who is the founder and CEO of PIP. So Sam, if you would like to introduce yourself more to our listeners.
Absolutely. Thanks, Giselle. So I'm Sam Fillingham. I'm the CEO of PIP-UK. My son, George, has Poland Syndrome. He's 14 now, so that's my connection to the community. Really started to build this community 11 years ago with just the thought of it's so hard to be alone with Poland Syndrome. Let's make sure we find everyone and make sure no one's alone with Poland Syndrome anymore.
I love that. And Poland Syndrome, before we get into what it is and how it presents itself, it is a very rare disease. It's only 1 in 100,000 people. And so I came across PIP about a year ago. And before that, I had never met anyone who had Poland Syndrome at all. I am 25 now. So that's a large portion of my life feeling that I was the only one. And through this community, I really saw that there were so many other people like me and also different to me as well. So that's something I really love about PIP and what it's doing in bringing the community together. Before we get into everything else, I just want to ask Sam, what is Poland Syndrome, if you can just shed some light on what that is for our community?
Absolutely. And I love talking about what is Poland Syndrome because each time one more person knows about it, we spread more awareness. So Poland Syndrome is what's known as a congenital anomaly, which basically means that you are born with it. And we don't 100% know the reason why you're born with it at the moment, hence the word anomaly. So the main symptoms are that you will be born with a missing or underdeveloped chest muscle. Usually your pectoral major or your pectoral minor will be affected. And the other main symptom that not everyone has is an underdeveloped hand with shortened fingers, sometimes missing fingers. Those are the main two symptoms. There are a lot of other associated symptoms that people experience that include missing ribs, thin arms, short arms, bones in the chest altogether affected, a little bit shorter, a little bit smaller. The more serious complications can be that your kidneys can be underdeveloped on that one side of the body. Your heart can also be on the wrong side of your chest. So it's a syndrome because there is a real spectrum of symptoms associated with it. So that is Poland Syndrome in a nutshell.
And I think what's so important about talking about Poland Syndrome more is that because it's so rare, it really is understudied. And not many doctors or healthcare professionals know how to diagnose it or know what it is, whether that's because it really is rare in numbers or because people aren't coming out and talking about it, telling people that they have Poland Syndrome, especially if you're chest affected, it can be something that you can hide. Whether it's one or the other, it really is affecting, I think, our education around it. And, just going back to speaking more about the community and hearing everyone's stories, everyone was diagnosed at different points in their lives, with so many people being diagnosed later on rather than early on. And that's even if they get diagnosed by a professional. A lot of the times they actually diagnose themselves, from the internet, which can be very scary, if you feel already so isolated and you have no idea what's happening to your body. So that's why I'm really excited about this community and to talk about Poland syndrome more, because I have a feeling that the more we talk about it, the more people will come out and say that they have it. Personally, I never really told anyone I had Poland syndrome up until I met everyone from PIP, just because it wasn't something I felt was necessary to talk about. But also, if I was the only one, what was kind of like the point of talking about it? And I could have been that one stat of a person who was not really adding to, access to education and everything. So I'm really, really excited to be talking about this more. And that brings me to my next point. And my next question is, obviously through PIP, you've developed and created such an amazing, engaged community of people from different ages, different countries, people who are affected differently with Poland syndrome. What does the Poland syndrome community mean to you, Sam, especially, as a mother of a child who is hand affected?
Yeah, I guess for me, like, Poland syndrome and the community is my heart and soul, because my son is my heart and soul, and that's where it all stemmed from, is like the love for him, and still does. And then as the years have gone on, that heart and soul has developed into a passion to help and support and find every member of this community so they're not on their own. And I am super passionate about that, because it really feels like it shouldn't be as hard as it is right now. And with some what feel like very simple changes to medical knowledge and medical treatment, that we could really make sure that no one's ever alone, they get diagnosed early, and they're on the right treatment path. So from, that love for my son to a love for a community, that I know we're really on the cusp of like a generational change to really improve things.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I really do think PIP is on the cusp of changing Poland syndrome as it is. I think just for people to have a space where they know that they're not alone, even if they don't need as much medical attention as, other people who are affected with Poland syndrome. I think just having a space where there are people that look like you or have had similar experiences. I know later on in this podcast, we're going to be talking more about the female experiences and the male experiences, because there are experiences in that journey. And I think to have a community where you can relate to people is really amazing. And I think from my side, what the Poland syndrome community means to me is that I really want to help encourage people to be active and to be strong. That was something that helped me a lot, and honestly, without sounding dramatic, it really did change my life. Having been diagnosed really young and really been encouraged to be active and strong, I think mentally and physically, that was just the best thing that could have happened to me. And so I really want to help other people with that journey as well. And the one thing that I'm just thinking back to, Sam, is when we did our community meetup at Richmond Park. And there was that little girl, she was probably about 11 years old, and she was throwing these stats at me. She'd obviously done her research on Poland syndrome. Obviously, she had Poland syndrome. And, she said that this is the first time she's ever met people who had Poland syndrome. And I think her and her mom drove about an hour to be with everyone. And there was that family there with the little boy, the baby, who doesn't even know what's going on, but he will always grow up knowing there was a community of people like him, and knowing that that is not what a lot of us had growing up, and that this is now changing that norm for the younger generation is, I think, just so inspiring. And like you were saying, just on the cusp of creating a generational change, and it'll just grow from there. So very, very exciting things coming up, which is what I want to ask you next, Sam. Obviously, we are starting this podcast to raise awareness, to talk to more healthcare professionals, for advice and all things medical, but also to hear about people's experiences, the good, the bad, physically, mentally. So what are some of the things that our listeners can look forward to in this podcast?
I think they can look forward to this podcast being really inclusive of the varied experiences of Poland syndrome. So whether you're hand affected, whether you're chest affected, whether you're affected in both and you've got a wider range of symptoms, there should be something within the experiences and the voices that you will hear within this podcast that will help you. So we're really keen on it being super inclusive, and that includes inclusive of like positive and negative experience as well. So it's always been hard to share stories and get everyone to get their stories out there. So sometimes it can be mostly positive stories that are out there. And we're really keen to show that, look, not everyone is confident with their body. That's just natural, that we don't all feel exactly the same about our body. And so we're really keen that we sort of show both sides of the experience and meet people where they are in their own Poland syndrome journey, and give them some little gems along the way of the different voices and the different experiences across the community. And that includes, parents, kids, men, women, everyone. We hope there to be something in there that everyone can pick up something and learn something. And also on the flip side, that the medical community that listen can hear more about the lived experience of each person within our community as well, to take to their practice.
I love that. And I loved what you were talking about, how you're going to embrace, positive and negative experiences. The thing that popped into my mind was that and I'm just going to use this word for lack of any other word, but for an atypical person, people already naturally struggle with body image issues. It's fairly normal, especially in the society that we live in. And so to expect, people who have Poland syndrome, who now look even more different and maybe have more cause for concern, to expect them to be completely positive about everything is, unfair. But I love that we're here to talk about the good and the bad, whether it's a positive experience for you, whether it's not. And I think just to create a space for people to come and not feel judged, to just share their experiences, get some knowledge where they can, and try and make their lives better as well as we can, and also just to create a community. So I'm really, really, really excited. The next episode we're going to be recording is around the female experience of Poland syndrome. So we're going to be talking a lot about self-confidence, body self-confidence, the journey of bra shopping and bra wearing, which was quite a tedious journey, if I may say so myself. And so I'm really excited to dig into that with our guests. So really looking forward to this podcast. And Sam, thank you so much for everything that you do. And I'm really excited to see what we can do and what community we can create with PIP. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us and subscribe to our podcast, and follow us on our social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook. See you soon.